Can't tell if it was a really dumb or smart algo that put this Dior ad in my social feed, but wow. This is a really high level of visual literacy, so I'm going to take a break from old school for a while and check it out. When you get into most magazine dimensions, they're not quite standardized, but they're around the 8.5 by 11 range. If you divide those, you come up with a 1.29. The closest thing to that in terms of golden section rectangle without going into compound rectangles is what we used to call a phi, or a 1.272. And it's derived from the Whirling square, the 1.618. Basically, you're taking the square root of 1.618, and that's how you get 1.272. Sort of like taking a Whirling square and whirling it back. So that'll be my first try here. I'm going to throw it up and see if it does anything. Cropping is always an issue with online sources, so I'm going to make the rectangle just a little bit bigger here so it fits better. And right away, the golden section on the top and the bottom appears to be major horizontal divisions. If I further break down the reciprocal on the top, I immediately get two major verticals on the golden section of that reciprocal, which of course are the same as the whole. And I can break that down even further and find some other verticals. Again, same as the whole, which is the whole point of the golden section, mathematical unity at every scale and to infinity. And if I move the reciprocal to the bottom, it would appear to find some of these major angles. And that's all good, but I find it a little hard to believe that someone's using such an esoteric rectangle from like ancient Greece for what's probably a very specific dimension of their template. I do think they're using it, I just think they're using it in an arbitrary way, and it's so close to the phi that it just works here. But none of this is what caught my attention. And that is, this thing really flows, and it's smooth. So let's look for some of those relationships. That would be based on circles large to small. A lot of variation here on the way you would interpret that. Anything close would be correct, I think. And that's what really stood out to me because a lot of these portrait product type setups tend to be very basic and mechanical. Not saying that's a bad thing. I like that too. Always remind me of Bauhaus. And I think these really heavily structured poses, which is still pretty common, is where that comes from. Old movements and art. As far as you want to go back, really. Starting with, say, Herb Ritts in the 90s to Avendon in the 50s. Some of these full-frame black and whites out of his Hasselblad were just pure magic. It's no coincidence that Bauhaus, Constructivism, Cubism, Futurism were all still strong popular movements during the turn of the century into the 20s and 30s when the New York fashion industry really started to become a thing. And that's a pretty powerful legacy.